Hello there everyone, and welcome to another Warrior Dungeon tanking video. So today we are doing the 1000 Maws of Toto-Rak. It might be Toto-Rak. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard anyone say it in a really long time, and even then I'm not 100% sure they said it correctly, but I just call it Toto-Rak usually. It's close enough. So this dungeon is really dark and damp. So I hope you like caves, because that's all this place is. So right off the bat, we've got a little group of two. Just grab them. Then we have another group of two here. Grab them. This little guy, the sapling, he's not going to move, unfortunately. So we're just going to have to tank all the enemies right here in this doorway. And, there are going to be these little Magitech photo cells that you can find throughout the hallways here, in between bosses. And either you can pick those up, or you can leave them for the rest of your party. It really doesn't matter. Just anyone can pick them up, as long as your party, as an entity, picks them up, you're fine. You're going to need 4 for this first section, and you'll know why once I get to the boss. So they're all gone. So we're just going to head this way. Now, this dungeon is actually kind of interesting. We have a branching pathway here. We can go left or straight. I'm actually going to go left. You can go through either one. It really doesn't matter. They both take roughly the same amount of time. They both have photo cells in them. So it really doesn't matter. So there's that photo cell there. You could probably see on screen there. I'll let my party member grab that. And then I'm just going to run off this direction. Should be another photo cell right there. I'm just grabbing all these enemies at once because I know that my healer can handle them. So just like the previous video, I'm joined again by Rumor and Cassie. So, of course, I am handling quite a few enemies at once. If you're not comfortable doing that, then just take it easy. Just do one group at a time. If there's only 2 enemies in a group, then just pull those 2 enemies, make sure you can get aggro on them, and then just kill those 2 enemies. There's no reason you have to rush through these dungeons. I mean, it is a time saver if you can pull more enemies, because your party members can AoE. They can use their area of effect attacks to take them down a lot faster. So you can complete dungeons quicker that way. But by no means is that required. Don't feel like you have to do any of those things, because you don't. So the Lancer there leveled up. So here's the final photo cell. So there's 4 in between the start of the dungeon and this Magitech terminal. So you're just going to want to get all 4 and then interact with that terminal. And then it's going to spawn this boss here. Coral of Ninetails. I pronounce that Coral. I have no idea if that's correct. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard that pronounced. So honestly, I don't even know if that's correct. And actually, I know we're at the first boss, but I'm afraid I neglected to mention that we actually have a new ability for this dungeon that we did not have in the previous dungeons, and that is Thrill of Battle. And what that does, I'll go ahead and pull it up specifically. I already have enough aggro here. What it does specifically is it increases your maximum HP by 20%, and it restores that amount immediately. So for easy math, let's say for example you have 1000 total HP, and then you use that buff. It very clearly states right here it's going to give you 20%, so it's going to buff your health to 1200, and it will immediately restore that health. So your maximum HP will extend to 1200, and your HP will go up to 1200. It's not going to extend your max HP, but then not replenish it, you know? So that's nice to have, especially when you're doing really big pulls. You can use that for some extra HP. You can take a few more hits. And of course, since it's percentage based, it's going to scale as you level up. and as you get more HP, until eventually, like later on in the game, like level 70 geared warriors have like over 60,000 HP, and 20% of 60,000 is a lot. So it adds more than 10,000 HP onto your bar, which is pretty crazy. 10,000 HP, I mean that's like 10 times the HP I have right now. Not quite 10 times, but you know, a lot more. So yeah, besides the real battle, nothing new, just same old, same old. So in between that first boss and the second boss, there are going to be another wave of 4 photocells. Just kind of strewn throughout the hallways here. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. I got all turned around somehow. I don't know why, but we fixed that. So in addition to photocells just kind of laying around in the hallways, a couple of the enemies also drop them. As you're about to see here, there's going to be an enemy that's going to drop one. So as you can see here, I use Rampart, get that 20% defense buff, and then Convalescence, which I believe is either 15 or 20% healing potency efficiency. Meaning that your healer can heal you more effectively. They'll heal you more per spell. I'm actually going to look that up real quick just because I'm curious. 20%, okay. I forget the exact potency on some of these things myself. Man, that Lancer already leveled up again. He must have that. Yeah, he has the road to 60 buff. So if you look right here, this little plus icon, that's the road to 60. And basically what that means, if you're on a road to 60 server, is that it will significantly buff your experience gained under level 60. I believe for just about everything, it's double experience. I think there are some exclusions to that, but I think just about everything is double XP, and that doesn't only count for combat, it also counts for crafting and gathering. So that's very useful if you'd like to level an alternate character, or if you're just starting the game and you want a very relaxed leveling experience. You can choose a Road to 60 server, and the game is basically extremely easy to get through in early game. I mean, you don't have to grind at all because it's just going to hand you all the experience you could ever need. You will never have to grind at all until you get to level 60. So that is nice. Personally, I have a few alts that have the Road to 60 buff. I don't really play on them regularly, but I definitely take advantage of that buff when I can. It's really nice. I don't know how it would benefit or like possibly tarnish your experience if you're going through it for the first time with that buff, because I went through the game without it. But honestly, I don't really think it detracts from the overall experience. I mean, you're still getting to do all the same activities. You'll just have no issues with grinding. You won't have to grind ever because you're just going to get way more experience than you need at any given point in time. So it just reduces your effort level, I suppose. So we came over here to get the 4th photocell. That's actually the final photocell we're going to pick up in this dungeon. Between the 2nd and 3rd boss, there's a bit of a different setup. So go ahead and interact with that. The boss is going to pop out just like last time. And for the most part, this is a very similar fight. It's not exactly the same as the other one, but it is similar. You'll see how it's different here in just a moment. So here he goes. So he spawned 2 ads. Usually what I like to do is I'll go ahead and attack one that's like right next to me, and then I'll target the other one and use provoke. I don't know if I explained this in a previous video, so I'll just go over it again now. Provoke basically, when used on an enemy, will throw you at the top of the aggro list, but only by 1 point. which means that if you use Provoke, yes, you'll be at the top of the aggro chain, you'll have aggro, but if you don't use an aggro gaining attack on that enemy to build more aggro, then whoever had top aggro before just has to hit them one time and they'll be right back at the top. So you gotta watch out for that. So as you can see there, we got pulled in by that web. All you have to do is destroy it, let your party members through. Looks like they are taking their good old time to get over here, which is it's fine. No rush, whatever. There's also a whole bunch of these fleshy pods, which basically, if you walk up next to them, they'll explode. They're kind of like proximity mines. And they'll put a poison debuff on you. And they do stack, like as you can see here. So I walked into 2, and now I have 2 separate poison buffs. So it can get pretty hectic. You definitely don't want to just run full speed into like all of them. That would just be a really bad idea. So I'm going to go ahead and tank all of these enemies here. Using overpower quite a bit here, but that's okay. I actually got a goad from one of the DPS. I'm actually not 100% sure if it was Rumor or Drifter. It could have been either, honestly. A cross-class ability. Well, I guess they're not called cross-class anymore, but roll actions you can put on melee DPS now. You have goad, which is what that one was. That little golden circle icon. Basically what that does is it gives whoever you put that buff on, they get a TP regeneration buff for a short period of time. And especially for Warrior, that's a really nice buff to get, because Warrior goes through that TP very quickly. And there he goes, he just leveled again. So literally in the time period of 1 dungeon, he's leveled 3 times. So that sort of goes to show how incredibly good that Road to 60 buff is. Yeah, even Cassie's mentioning it there. Road to 60 buff is so nice. It really is. Leveling 3 times in 1 dungeon, that's kind of insane. But that's okay. I'm actually level 63, I believe, outside of the dungeon. Yeah, so that buff wouldn't affect me anyway. But that buff only applies to newly created characters on a server that supports Road to 60. So my character was created long before this server got Road to 60, so I unfortunately do not get the benefits. It doesn't matter if I'm on a class that's lower than 60 or not. Like my machinist is level 30, but I still don't get the buff, which is pretty unfortunate, but no, it is what it is. I'm pretty close to having pretty much every class at max level anyway, so it's not really that big a deal. I'm kind of on the home stretch. I have no idea why that guy wasn't being targeted, but that's fine. Let's get him here. So you don't have to, but usually what I like to do is I like to just pull all the enemies to this web, and then I'll attack the web while everyone else starts taking out the enemies. And then it gives you a little bit of walking room back here once you take out the web. Yep, then we're just going to finish these guys out and we'll be at the final boss. So this is also a pretty short dungeon. I mentioned in the previous video that Halatali is pretty short. This one's also pretty short as long as you do everything efficiently and you don't wipe or something like that. Which might happen. I've wiped on this dungeon before. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But yeah, here we are at the final boss. This guy does have a couple mechanics. Graphius. Or maybe Graphius. I'm not entirely sure. But all I have to do is jump down here and the fight will start. So he's going to spawn a bunch of fleshy pods on the outside. You can just completely ignore them. Rumor's actually hitting them to blow them up, but you don't have to do that. It does make it easier, but you don't have to. As long as your healer's paying attention. But better safe than sorry, I suppose. So this guy has two mechanics, like I said a minute or so ago. One, he's going to spawn ads, which he just did here. And he's going to spawn them pretty far apart, so it's kind of annoying to get aggro on them. Usually I like to like do a ranged aggro grab, which in Warrior's example would be Tomahawk. For Paladin it would be Shield Lob and Dark Knight. What's Dark Knight? I think maybe Unbend or something like that? Unmend. Unmend, that's what it is. So I usually use that on one of them, and then just run over the other and use Overpower. Because why not? So here's the second mechanic. He's going to grow a tail, and he can put down that big green poisonous circle on the ground. You definitely don't want to be standing in that, as if it wasn't obvious already. So once his little tail spawns up here, you want to take it out. And once you do that, it's going to stun him, and he'll take extra damage while he's stunned. But it's only for a couple seconds, so it's not that significant. So, yep, that's that fight. And he actually leveled again. Look, that guy's 28. He leveled 4 times in a dungeon. Road to 60 is OP. But that's just how it is. I mean, Road to 60 is really nice. I meant to hit this. There we go. Give that Lancer his calm. All those levels he got. He went from 24 to 28 in one dungeon. That is pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy. What kind of food buff does he have? Pretty weak. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. So yep, that was the 1,000 Maws of Toto-Rak. Still a pretty simple dungeon. But the next video is where this series is going to start getting a little more exciting. Because up until this point, we've pretty much only done Marauder dungeons. Like, I could take off my Soul Crystal and be the base class Marauder, and it wouldn't even really matter. As you can see, my hotbars are completely messed up, but you don't pay attention to that. Basically, I could be a Marauder, go through those dungeons, and I would have the exact same ability as if I went through as Warrior. Because you don't unlock your job stuff until level 30. Whoops, I messed that up. I need to go ahead and re-equip my Marauder Crystal there. Or the Warrior Crystal, rather. There we go, Warrior. So, yeah, the next dungeon is going to be Hawk Manor. And I actually really enjoy this dungeon. It's a really good dungeon to start out as your job. Because if you look here in the description, it is a level 28 dungeon, and like I said, you have to be level 30 before you can use your job abilities. But if you look down here, it level syncs to 31, which means if you do this dungeon at 28 or 29, you'll be doing it as your class. But if you do it at level 30 and have completed your job quest, then you'll be doing it as your job. Now, I'll go ahead and mention this now. I'll probably mention again in the Hawk Manor video itself, but since Hawk Manor is sort of this quote-unquote transitional dungeon, and what I mean by transitional is a lot of people go into that dungeon as a class, even at level 30, because some people hit level 30 and they're just doing MSQ and they just don't think about doing their quest, and then they get to the dungeon and they just do it. What I strongly recommend you do is as soon as you hit level 30, immediately go and do your job quest. Immediately, because it is very important that you get that. Especially if you are playing a healer or a tank. And I'll tell you specifically why now, and I'll tell you in the next video. Specifically for a healer, you want it because you're going to get your secondary heal, your more powerful heal. So for Conjurer / White Mage, it'll be your Cure 2, which you get at level 30 after you've gotten White Mage. Also, you get on Scholar, let's see if I can remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called. Oh well, there is a more potent heal. I think it's Adloquium. It's like a shield. I think that's it actually. So yeah, you get your more powerful heal. Benefit 2 for Astrologian, or Astrologian, however you like to pronounce that. And for tanks, you get your tank stance, which is mega important. Mega important. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, the tank stance for Warrior is Defiance. and I'll go over that more when we actually do that dungeon. But for now, I'm actually going to end this video here. So thank you very much for watching the 1000 Maws of Toto-Rak, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.